All right, everybody, we'll open it up to some comments from Coach Dreiling, and then you guys can ask questions.
Okay, gearing up for big. The Lobos coming into town at the University of New Mexico. Played them the last couple years, so I have an idea of what they're about. They're going to play extremely tough. They have a bunch of tough kids. That's kind of what their program has been, regardless of who the head coach is. But for us, it's going to be building off our second half. We played our best football in the second half of UNLV. The problem in the past, we've taken about 2 steps forward and we just take 2 steps back. So it's making sure we still execute at that level. And I think for the first time this season, we played complementary football. Our defense was getting stops, offense was moving the ball. We had good field position, forced them to drive long fields, and then that's the type of brand of football that we want to play. So we're getting closer now. We have to make that big step this week. So let's go with some questions.
Coach Jason Walker with Cash Relay Daily. Mentioned the second half against UNLV and second half against Boise, similar, where I think you were even in points against the Broncos, outscored UNLV by 18. How much of that is you guys playing better football, and how much of that is maybe those two teams letting off the gas after being up by a lot at halftime?
Boise State was a lot of their backups. There's no doubt about that. UNLV was their starters the entire time. We know that, they know that. Now the problem is when you're down 41-7, it really don't matter. That's way too hard of a hole. The biggest thing is our players did walk away more confident than you probably could imagine because, I mean, UNLV's got a chance to make the playoffs, and we just got out from the second half. And the funny thing about it is we didn't call any different calls on offense or defense or special teams, but the kids had belief and they executed at a very high level. Everything I've been talking about for the last month and a half. And that's what it looks like. So we're so dang close, but we can't take our step back. So we need to use that momentum that we had in the second half and make sure we come out firing versus UNM in the rest of the games.
Hey, Coach Dreiling, Eric Franson with 106.9 The Fan. On that, you felt pretty good about your second half against Boise, hoping to get that to carry forward in the first half against UNLV, but that failed to happen. What is it about the first half, particularly second quarter, that's been kind of the bugaboo for you guys?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, it's just I wouldn't say it's just because of the second quarter, but that's when big plays happen. That's when we've had turnovers, long punt returns, kickoff return for a touchdown. I don't know if we lose focus into the second quarter. I wouldn't believe that, but it's been a large number of events that happen that take place in that quarter, which get us out of the game. So we're going to work and practice on making sure we push through that middle half. Everyone can be focused play one and everyone can be focused the last play, but making sure our players are on point in the thick of practice, because that is where we're struggling. And it starts with turnovers and it starts with big plays on defense and in special teams. So if we can eliminate that, right, you're going to be right where you want to be. Problem is you have to take care of yourself.
Coach Dreiling, hey, Jason Turner from the Herald Journal. New Mexico's definitely made some pretty big strides offensively this year, a little more balanced than they've been in the past couple of years. So what do you see differently from them than you've seen the previous couple of seasons?
One, quarterback play. This guy was their Wildcat last year guy. Now he's the every down guy, and he's unbelievable. He is running the ball better than anybody maybe we've seen up to this point, and he has a laser of an arm and throwing all these tight window throws. So their run game has been open, and he has been just willing the pass game, and they're so dangerous because teams will get to him, but they've only given up 1 sack on the entire season, in large part because no one can get this guy down. Now it turns into scramble mode, and they got receivers leaking out late. So they've been very successful with him, and they've had a couple of receivers that's been there for the last 3 years that done a great job. So I think Broncos, if you look at their schedule, it's been pretty similar to ours. They've played some really good teams and kind of got on a roll the last couple of games versus more easier opponents. So they're way better in their record. We know that. Their offense has been rolling. So we have to be able to get some stops, force some turnovers, and get our offense on the field and get some points.
Nate, I'm curious, how familiar are you with Bronco Mendenhall and just his past and what he's done as a coach?
Just yeah, watching as a fan, met him a couple times at the Mountain West Media Days. But he's been, arguably one of the top coaches in the country at a couple different spots. Was at BYU and had great success, and carried that over to Virginia. And I think just a home run hire for New Mexico to get him down there. So that's what he does. He fixes problem and he builds programs. So whether he's going to flip it this year or down the road, he will get it done. That's just the type of guy he is.
So, Coach Dreiling, Jason Turner again. So, how valuable was it playing a guy like Williams of UNLV, a guy who's also a dual threat heading into this game?
I wouldn't say valuable because I never want to do that. But it does show you what we need to get better at. We ended up with 4 sacks in that game, but it very easily could have been 7 or 8 if we would have kept the quarterback contained. We always talk about the number one rule of my defense, and that's don't let the ball cross your face, meaning if you're outside the ball carrier, you have to keep it leveraged and turn it back to your pursuit. We missed too many of those, and large number were sacks. So if we're going to be successful versus UNM, it's got to be contain the quarterback, keep him in the teeth of the defense, and don't let him get out running.
Coach Jason Walker again. I know explosive plays have been a talking point with defense, and you've, I think, maybe touched on this before, but what tends to go wrong with the defense when they're giving up those big plays?
It's typically one, the golden rule, right? The ball bounces outside. But then 2, we just don't execute good enough. Our players do the fits all week in practice, and for some reason we get bad eyes. And Jason, big plays don't come from being outmatched; they come from being misaligned or having missed keys, not looking at who you're supposed to look at. So just like the second quarter talk, I mean, anyone can fit a play correctly once, but it's having the discipline to do it over and over and over again. And that's what we're going to continue to push in practice. And I get it. Like, we're playing a bunch of young guys on defense, but at the end of the day, no one cares. Everyone has injuries, right? You have to get to guys that you have better. And that's what we intend to do.
Hey, Coach Eric Franson, once again, could you just comment on how valuable it is for your offense to have Jalen Royals, a guy that can go for 100, 200 yards a game, and then you now have another wide receiver who has that potential with Jack Estera?
Yeah, I don't think it's another wide receiver. It's kind of what I talk about. We have a 2-headed monster every single week, and there's always a third option of someone who's going to take off. So, for instance, the first game, right, Jalen Royals and Razul are going to get their yards, and they're going to be unbelievable players. First game, Kyrie's goes for 100-something yards on 3 catches. Then you have Jack going for 10 catches for 150 yards. Those first 2 guys draw so much attention. There's always room for somebody else to really take things off, whether it's Brock Lane or Otto or Grant Page. It just allows our offense to be so multiple in how we get the ball out, right? And right now, like if with the way Spencer's playing, if we can eliminate our turnovers and say what it is, most of his turnovers, he had 2 tip passes, one of them that he fumbled the ball. If we can cut the turnovers out, then we are going to be very, very, very hard to beat down the stretch. And that 3-headed monster with that third guy being a question mark makes it so fun for fans and so hard for defensive coordinators against us.
Hey, Coach, Patrick Mayhorn from the Ag Ship. You got, I think, if not double-digit pressures, nearly double-digit pressures from Kean Sloan and Lawrence Valatea on Friday. How important is it for you and for this defense that those guys have responded to these new larger roles in the way that they have, and they're starting to see this improvement?
Yeah, Patrick, that's a great question. We're down, 3 of our top defensive ends right now with Blaine Spires, Anoka, and Gabe Peterson. So Kean Sloan and Lawrence, guys were planning to have big years, but now they're planning to be the guy. And they're both playing over 60 snaps a play. So they did an unbelievable job. Kean, I think, finished with 2 or 3 sacks, and Lawrence was right there on a couple of them. Just needs to sink his hips and finish. But for us to have success, those guys have to be on top of it. We're pretty thin at the outside linebacker room. We had CJ and we had Will Holmes as the other 2 guys that played at that position, both very young. As far as college experience, and they're getting better and better as we go. But if Kean and Lawrence can set unbelievable edges in our defense, whether it's the run game or the pass game, then we're going to be exactly where we need to be and keeping everyone funneled back to the teeth of the defense.
Coach Jason Walker again. You mentioned the turnovers. I mean, you'd been doing pretty well with turnovers. I think you had like a 4-game stretch, and there was 5 total, and then 4 against UNLV. Was that just kind of an anomaly there, where you felt like you had been keeping the turnovers down, and then just kind of popped up again?
Yeah, maybe one of Spencer's was a bad pass. We felt like Jalen got tackled to the ground, that guy caught it, but the other one was an RPO where number 7 from UNLV, who might be the best player in the country, jumped up and picked a RPO. The other one was a tip ball that was bouncing, and 7 dove and caught it. Then one was just on a QB run. We don't run Spencer a lot, but sometimes he does have the ability to pull if he can get yards, and he just got to be able to secure the football. So 3 of the 4 could have never happened, but they did happen, right? And that puts the team in a tough situation. Spencer knows that. The best part about it is maybe not the first half Spencer wanted, and he finishes with 460 passing yards because he's so mentally tough and knows how to handle adversity. Now, if we can get rid of the mistakes, I think this team still has a chance to be really special.